Hi guys, my name's Dylan. These are my dogs, Coral and Mason. And I'm gonna talk to you today about something that doesn't appear all that often in movies or film, but is literally the most common thing in the world, and that is first-person perspective. And that is what you guys are seeing right now. This is a first-person perspective of my back room, games room, whatever you want to call it. So this is what I'm seeing. But we'll talk more specifically. Okay. So first person perspective is something that has been used literally forever. It's what we see. It's how human eyes perceive things. And it has been the center of video games now for 30 years or so. But films don't really do first person all that often. But let's talk about the films that do. So, first-person perspective is often used in films which place significant emphasis on the viewer being able to see and understand exactly what the character experiences. There are specific genres that tend to focus on first-person perspectives, which that's going to get fun to say a bunch of times, more than others, such as like action movies and horror movies and found footage movies. Each of these genres uses the first-person perspective differently to infer different things. Action movies use the first-person perspective to make us the camera, to make us view what the action hero is viewing, to jump and dodge and fight and with the hero. Some movies that use first-person perspective, action movies like Doom and Hardcore Henry and Predator. I'll come back to Hardcore Henry later because that's important. But let's have a look at those other movies first. Doom has us follow along with the protagonist John Grimm during the last scene of the film, which just turns into a first-person shooter-style scene. So the rest of the movie had been stereotypical action movie, long panning shots, close-in zoom-ups of the heroes' faces, but this is done entirely in first person. So I'll put this on for us now. I do apologize about sound. And remove the mouse. And now we're first person. So that goes on for, 4 minutes and 23 seconds? So about 4 more minutes of first person view from character John Grimm, which itself is fine, but it does stand out a bit differently from the rest of the film. And then we've got films like Predator, where instead of like a first-person like FPS view, we get just the view of how the Predator sees things, which in Predator is thermal imaging. So we're seeing here from the Predator's point of view, where he's seeing the enemies. And one of them is Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'm pretty sure. So we're seeing how the Predator sees. Horror movies tend to use first-person perspective to put us in with the hero, but not in a sense of invulnerability like the action movies do, but in a sense of terrifying horror and vulnerability. So probably the best example is there's a scene in the 2010 adaptation of Nightmare on Elm Street, not adaptation, remake of Nightmare on Elm Street, where one of the girls is running away from Freddy Krueger, who's gonna kill her, and she hides in a closet. And the moment she goes into the closet, we get first-person perspective. We're looking out from the Venetian blinds. We're seeing everything she sees, and we're awaiting the inevitable jump scare. I don't like horror movies. I'm a sook, so I'm not going to show you that because I don't want to have to deal with that. Then we have like found footage films like Cloverfield and Blair Witch Project and Chronicle, and I don't really count found footage films as first person perspective films, but that might just be being a bit of a snob. Personally, I don't think the first person perspective fits with found footage because you're seeing the camera's perspective instead of the characters. And yes, while the character is a character in the film and they are important, you end up with just shaky cam like you're getting now and somebody talking from behind a camera. So I do realize that I'm a massive hypocrite, but I don't particularly care for found footage films. Though, because they are shot almost entirely in first-person perspective, I feel that they do deserve some credit. You know, they are basically the only ones to do that. Until now. So, one of the first-person perspective films was done in, like, 1934. It's called The Lady in the Lake. And it's not very good. It constantly switches out from first-person perspective to others. And there are others as time goes on. Like, there's The Dark Passenger, which switches from first-person to second-person to overhead arcing views. But in 2016, a film director, Ilya Naishuller, I have no idea how to pronounce his last name, so I'm just going to call it Ilya. He directed a movie called Hardcore Henry. And Hardcore Henry is done entirely in first-person. The reason that Ilya did this is because he does enjoy first-person perspectives. Here, I'll show you a bit of a video. Ilya is apparently in a punk band called Biting Elbows, and this is one of their songs, and this is a film clip that he directed for him. I don't know if he's actually in the band, but he did direct this film clip. And this is a first-person perspective film clip. That's Ilya right there, that's the guy. Ah, yes, the dog. We'll skip past the dog so you guys don't have to deal with my dog barking. So this is a film clip for this song, which is entitled Bad Motherfucker. Apologies for swearing. And it gives us a day in the life of, I'm assuming, a Russian super soldier. Just because he's so much better than everyone. Look at that wall drop. This is all done first-person perspective, I believe, using GoPros. And those are airsoft guns. He's not actually shooting people. And, so Ilya shot Bad Motherfucker for the band. And was talking to another fairly famous director who suggested he do that. He extend that idea of first-person action film like that into a feature-length film, and Ilya did, and working with Sharlto Copley. So Ilya, I believe, directed District 9 as well. He's a fairly famous director of not so much art house but indie films, and Sharlto Copley is like an actor from District 9 and a bunch of other films. He's a very famous, I think he's South African, don't quote me on that, but Ilya worked with Sharlto Copley on Hardcore Henry, which is an entirely first-person action film that was released in 2016. So Hardcore Henry is interesting because instead of the guy just holding a camera, it is a helmet. Like they use a helmet that contains... Sorry, I'm getting distracted by me. They use a helmet that contains 2 GoPro cameras, one in the place of each eye. And it's a massive, big, ugly helmet that's apparently very heavy and very hard on the stunt doubles of the characters. And they use that to film the scenes. So Hardcore Henry is just pure first person. And now, because we're in Australia, there's no way for me to view this movie yet. It's not on Netflix or YouTube or iTunes or anything like that, because Australia sucks with getting movies. So I can't tell you how the movie is. This is just a snippet from the trailer. But I can tell you that from the reviews that I read of the movie, the first-person perspective is fantastic, and the issue people have with the movies, because people always have issues with movies, is the story. Apparently the story is just kind of cliched and a little bit boring. But the first-person perspective is enough to make it a good movie, nonetheless. So, here I'll show you the setup for it. So, the crew from Hardcore Henry, so Ilya and Sharlto Copley, they attended in like like early 2016, they attended a festival called South by Southwest in Austin, Texas, where they premiered Hardcore Henry, and that's where they went to do it. It's a massive, big film, game, music festival announcement kind of thing. It's very popular on the internet. And they went there, and then the guys from Hardcore Henry teamed up with an internet production company called Rooster Teeth, who makes animated videos and live sketches and stuff like that, to make a public service announcement, a PSA, for the Alamo Drafthouse, which is a chain of really high-class theaters in Texas, in America. And the Alamo Drafthouse apparently has a very hardcore stance on talking or texting or playing with your phone during the movie. And this PSA was designed to play before their movies. It's the pre-roll. Don't play on your phone. Don't talk. We will kick you out. It's a thing. And this is a behind the scenes for the PSA. And this shows the helmet and the behind the scenes.
It's amazing that I'm here.
So that's Ilya speaking there.
Great.
And that's the rig.
For the walking.
So the rig itself is apparently pretty heavy and cumbersome, and has a bad habit. There we go. It's good. It's good. I'm great. It has a bad habit of hurting the necks of the people who use it. So during filming of Hardcore Henry, 13 different stuntmen, including Ilya himself, wore the helmet to film. This time they only have one GoPro, but just for the PSA. But during the actual movie, they have two GoPros. So from the 1930s, you have movies that try and do first-person perspective. All the way up to 2016, the movie succeeds in doing first-person perspective, but isn't that great, the story. And then you have things like the resurgence of VR technology, virtual reality technology, which come in the form of headsets very similar to these. Mostly like the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive, and then there's PlayStation ones, and then there's other ones. And the VR headsets feature two cameras, and they make you the star of the video game. Your movements and actions are all controlled by the headset, and usually some handheld remotes that come with. So instead of just sitting on a couch and playing on a TV and just sitting around, you stand and you walk and you talk and you have the headset. And real life is hitting a point where virtual reality and first-person perspective are becoming more to the forefront. So it'll be very interesting to see what comes out in the future, because you can film in virtual reality. You can film in VR, and it's all from a first-person perspective. There are, pardon me, I know there are scenes in Rooster Teeth's own stuff where they use virtual reality to get in and move around an object in virtual space and film it from there. So first-person perspective is something that we all see on a day-to-day basis. It's literally how we all view the world. And it's interesting to see that in 2016, we're starting to get films and movies and games that look more realistic than anything else we've had previously, despite how outlandish they are. Thank you.